Hey there, pirates! Welcome aboard the Anime no Mi channel. Since Luffy ate the Gomu Gomu no Mi, which later became the Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, we've had this nagging feeling, what if this fruit didn't just randomly choose him? What if there's a much older story, one that dates back before the pirate era, before Roger, maybe even before Joy Boy? Honestly, I think maybe Luffy isn't the first in his bloodline to encounter this godly power, and maybe, just maybe, one of his ancestors made a deal directly with the entity that created or unleashed the Akuma no Mi in the world. A devil, in quotes, who could very well be connected to Imu, this strange creature who's been around, who knows how long, pulling strings in the shadows all over the world. What really got me was chapter 1150, the demonic form of Gunko Aimu using a demonic contract, opening a magical book, and turning giants into control demons, all based on something called Domi Reversi. This reminded me of something we've seen before, the concept of inherited will, powers that manifest not only with training, but with destiny. What if Luffy's fruit only awakened now because the devil of the fruits, or this dark force, wanted it to, as part of an ancient cycle restarting? Think about it. Imu seems to know everything. He's above the Gorosei, rules from the shadows, and probably has been alive since the Lost Century. And what else has been around since the Lost Century and is totally mysterious? Devil fruits? There's never been an explanation of where they came from. Vegapunk tried, but even he said he can't fully understand them. In chapter 1069, he said the fruits emerge from people's desires. But that's just the surface. Desires of who? Created how? By whom? I think there's a dark hand behind all of it. Someone who took those desires and made a pact, contract, or some sort of bargain, just like Gunko Imu did with Brogy. Instead of give me your soul, it was give me your form, your body, your essence, and I'll give you power. Power that, yes, grants wishes, but also takes away the ability to swim. Or maybe there's an even deeper price we don't fully understand yet. Now, what if one of Luffy's ancestors was the first to strike such a deal? Like someone from the Lost Century, a rebel who went up against the power of the 20 Kingdoms, and who made this deal to get enough strength. I think maybe he was the first person to eat a fruit. Or even crazier, maybe he created the fruits alongside Imu and then turned against him. That would explain why Imu is so intent on erasing the D name. And then we come back to Luffy. He's not just the guy who inherited Joy Boy's will, he's a direct descendant of a bloodline connected to the origins of the fruits. That could be why the Gomu Gomu, or Hito Hito, was so heavily monitored by the world government and was stolen by Shanks. This fruit has a history with the DS. It's tied to the rebellious ancestor, and that's why it's so dangerous. In chapter 1044, when the Gorosei talk about the fruit, they say it carries the name of a god, the sun god, Nika, and they say it's almost like it has a will of its own. Now, imagine if that isn't just the fruits, but the memory of the person who used it before. Maybe the soul of that ancestor is still tied to the power, waiting for the next in the bloodline to awaken it. That's why Luffy doesn't need a technical explanation. Things just click for him. He transforms, fights in an absurdly creative way, and still has fun. That's inheritance. That's pure legacy, and maybe it came directly from that first D who once crossed paths with Imu. Speaking of Imu, the guy is way too weird. In chapter 1085, when Cobra goes to talk to the Gorosei, Imu appears as this sinister silhouette and commands everything. And that's when we realize he's someone who's been in power since the Lost Century. Cobra mentions Nefertari di Lili, one of the founders who refused to ascend to Maria Joie. Her letter says she scattered the poneglyphs around the world, and that really bothers Imu. So, if Vivi's family has this ancient connection, why not Luffy's? I think this ancestor of Luffy could have been someone close to Lily, maybe even a revolutionary partner, or someone who rebelled after seeing what Imu was capable of, just like he did with Brogy and Dory. Imu takes people and turns them into demons, with a magical contract, a sinister trident, and everything. What if the origin of the fruits was something like that, disguised as desire? Maybe Luffy's ancestor didn't even realize the price at the time. Maybe he thought he was just manifesting his dream. But the devil of the fruits gave him power and took something in return, took control, messed with emotions, tied his soul to a fruit. And if you think about it, that matches what we've seen in the Zoan fruits. In chapter 1037, the Gorosei say Zoans have wills of their own, like they can resist their user. And Luffy's fruit is a mythical Zoan. So it has will, it has consciousness. Now, who's to say that consciousness isn't actually his ancestors? I like to think all of this will come to a head in Elbaf because Elbaf feels like the place where everything converges. And with Gunko Imu now showing off his powers there, the timeline is going to tie together. The giants will remember ancient stories, maybe even stories about the D ancestor, about the first person who made the deal. The poneglyphs might hold a clue to this. Maybe it's not even a text, but a hidden symbol, a reference to this original deal that created the Akuma no Mi. And Luffy, without even realizing it, will come to understand that he's reliving the cycle. The craziest thing to think about is that if Imu's been alive this long, he might have made this kind of deal with multiple people over the centuries. But only one person broke the rule. Only one D betrayed the pact. Maybe that's why the D family is called the enemies of the gods. They were the only ones who didn't submit. Luffy's ancestor made the deal, realized it was wrong, and rebelled. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the Hito no Mi model Nika was created. Not by Imu, but by that ancestor. Like the fruit that brings freedom to break the chains of demonic contracts. The fruit that will laugh in the end. The fruit that cracks the sky with a punch. And in the end, maybe Luffy will never know his ancestor's name, but he will feel it, just like he always has. That person's will awaken in him. He'll remember dreams he never lived, feelings he never understood, memories that aren't his, but are there, burning, vibrating with the drum of liberation. And that will be the spark that lights up the final stretch of One Piece. Not just against the government, but against the system behind the fruits, behind the history, behind everything. If Luffy is a descendant of the person who made the first pact, who created or had a hand in the origin of the fruits, then everything he's lived through so far is a path of return. Like he's being pushed back to the origin point of everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's the true meaning of him being the joy boy of the present. I don't think the discovery of this will come with some big explosive revelation like, hey Luffy, that was your great-great-grandfather from the Lost Century. No, it's going to be in the details. Maybe Vegapunk will reveal that some devil fruits have a genetic record. Maybe there'll be a poneglyph that only reacts to Luffy. Maybe even Imu himself will recognize Luffy's power not as just any threat, but as the return of someone he's faced before. And here's the key point. Maybe Luffy isn't just fulfilling a prophecy or some inherited mission. Maybe he's correcting an old mistake. Like his ancestor made a deal with Imu, or this dark entity, created the devil fruits, or helped spread them, saw it go too far, tried to undo it, and lost his life in the process. And Luffy, without even knowing it, inherited this calling. In chapter 1069, when Luffy activates Gear 5 and Vegapunk gets all excited talking about the sun god, it's like science is witnessing a miracle with its own eyes. Because it's not just an insane power, it's a symbol, a living proof that there's something beyond human understanding. And maybe that's the key. Luffy's ancestor tried to be that symbol, but failed. And Luffy, being who he is, not thinking about legacy, not caring about lineage, just acting because he wants his friends to be free, for people to be able to laugh, for the world to not be a prison, ends up being the successful version. It's the idea of D in the heart, not the blood. Now, talking about Imu, we saw in Egghead, an Elbaf, that he has the power to turn people into creatures. And more than that, he has a connection to the code of the devil fruits. And if he really is the entity behind their origin, or the guardian, or the jailer, or the distributor, or any other role, then he knows Luffy's lineage, maybe even fears it. Maybe he allowed that specific fruit to disappear, to slip out of control because he's afraid of what it represents. And then Shanks comes in as the guy who stole that fruit on purpose. Not so the government couldn't use it, but so it could end up in the right hands. And it did. If that's true, then Imu isn't just the final villain. He's the last link between the present and the lost century. And Luffy's going to break that link with one blow, or maybe with a laugh. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.